Hello guys, welcome back. How are you guys all doing? Whoa, we have 53 people attending right now. Great. We have like less than a week, right? Exactly like 7 days left for the test. We'll wait a couple of seconds until I think we have enough people, right? We have 54 people. Okay, we'll get started. Tell me if you guys can hear my voice, right? Can you guys hear me pretty good and see me? Guys, don't be nervous. Do not. Okay, be nervous, like getting like to take the test, but during the test day, like prepare. Like don't be very stressed out because stressing out, honestly, for me personally, stressing out really does like I can't perform very well when I'm stressed out. But some people can do pretty good during. Okay, great. I see a lot of yeses. Okay, so great. We got started. Okay, so as you guys, right? Many of you guys know, right? That's why we have so many people today, because we're going to be covering the models and theories, right? We need to know for the exam. So we're only covering, just make sure, like just resitting that again, only for the exam. So there's a lot of models you guys don't really have to know, but that are part of like especially unit 6 that talks about cities and the land use in cities and rural areas. So we're only going to be covering the models that are kind of show up in the first 5 chapters. We're going to be talking a lot of migration, the demographic transition model, for sure, that's a big one, and then agricultural models dealing with the agricultural unit. And if you have any questions at any point in the stream, feel free to just put them in the ask questions section. Okay, so we'll get started. Let me share here my slides. Okay. Here we go. Okay, let me start with, I guess we have questions. We haven't even started, so I guess they're not. Okay, can you please go over the dependency theory, the Griffin-Ford model, and the central place theory? Okay, we're gonna go over central place theory. The dependency theory we can go over, but I don't have slides for. I did not prepare slides for, I believe. Let me see. I was about to include it, but I did not. But we actually can. We can definitely talk about it. We will talk about it. We will talk about it. Okay. So we'll. Okay. Okay, I get that question a lot. We get a lot of discussion like these kind of questions. What unit should I spend the most reviewing? I mean, this answer would vary depending, right? Like where, depending, it will vary, right, from person to person. I think I would, for me, if I'm like cramming everything, studying the last week, I would study the units that I'm not very strong on. So I would say that, yeah. And a lot of I've heard some rumors saying that there might be an FRQ, the agriculture unit. So I would say review agriculture a lot. I would say that. So yeah, but it would just vary. Don't take my words for it. I just heard it. I heard it by somebody that's supposed to be like expert in reading like AP exams, right, and grading them. So yeah, just review everything equally, but just focus on the stuff that you're not strong, like your weakest subjects. Okay, so let's get it started. So again, don't forget to tune in to these streams if you're taking any other AP classes. We have Mondays English, math, and then Tuesday social sciences, Wednesday sciences, and then Thursdays we have histories. The feeling after that, after you're done with the test, is just great, right? So hang in there and keep ying. Again, don't forget to follow us at Thinkfifable on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We also have TikTok and Facebook, but it's not included here. But we have TikTok and Facebook too, so don't forget to follow us. And then we have 7 days left, right? So what kind of things you can do on top of reviewing content, right? So the College Board has many FRQs, many FRQ practice, over 20, I think there are 25, right? So do guys, do them. Please do them. They help a lot. And I'm not, okay, I don't know how it is for the HUG classroom, AP classroom, but for me, for the other classes, the FRQs are labeled as units. So I think would be so helpful if you guys do the ones that are not, you guys are not, do the units, do the ones for the units that you guys are not very strong on, and see what things you can learn more and how it is graded. Grade yourself too. And again, I don't know if you guys know, but yesterday the College Board released the demo for the test, right? So make sure to do that and go to the College Board and make sure to be familiar with the format and everything, and decide what kind of method you want to submit your test by. It's not scary, Sarah. It is not scary. It's not scary. Just if because you guys have been, I'm pretty sure you guys have been working so hard and preparing. So I think you guys will do very well. Just believe in yourselves and you got it. Do you know if we miss one question, you still have a chance? Oh, okay. Yep, that's right. You don't. Again, guys. Again, that's a big one, right? Don't think. Don't spend too much, like the last 5 minutes. Make sure you're done after that. Make sure you're done. Even if you're not done, finish your sentence and then you're done. You don't have to finish all the sections, because if you actually, like, God forbid, but if you don't have enough time to submit it, you literally get 0, right? You get 0 points. That's terrifying. So make sure you have enough time to submit your questions, and don't worry if you're not done. You don't have to be done. Just do the ones that you know. And again, talking so much, we haven't even started. Sorry, guys. But again, start. I would say if the question has multiple, well, your first question, yeah, your first question will have multiple sections, and sometimes those sections are not related. Sometimes, if they're not related, I would say do the sections that you really know, like you really know, right? You really know, do the questions that you really know and you think you will get full credit on, and then go back to the ones that you don't know, because those are like, oh, maybe I'll get 4. It's kind of like, oh, maybe I'll try to get the points. But for the ones you don't, start with the ones you know, because just get the most points you can get and then go back to the ones that you don't know. So yeah, that's it. And then today I've been talking a lot. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the demographic transition model, the epidemiological transition model, and then Malthus theory, and then the world system theory, the Heartland theory, the migration model, the laws of migration, the gravity model, and then von Thunen model for agriculture and land use, and then the Bidran theory at the end. Okay, so the demographic transition model. Okay, you guys, all of you guys by now should be familiar with this at this point, right? So this is unit 2, right? Population, unit 2. So the demographic transition model basically talks about the growth, right? The growth of the different stages by which countries have to go through to grow population-wise, yeah. So in the first stage, right, we see this pyramid, right? Not a perfectly, but like a C-shaped pyramid, right? Where we have where the natural increase rate is very low, even though the birth rate is very high, right? The birth rate is very high, but the death rate is very high too. That's why kind of they cancel each other out. The death rate and the birth rate cancel each other out, and we don't really see any type of like growth, population growth. And at this, you guys have to know that no countries in this moment exist in that stage, right? We have a lot of developing countries in the second stage of this model, but none of them are in the first stage. And usually the first stage is like the first stage is like where most of our history existed, right? That's where like hunters and gatherers are placed. Yeah, and there's not a lot of technology and advancements in that base, in that stage. In the second stage, we see more. This is where the most growth happens, right? The booming of the population just goes up, and this is mainly due to a decrease in death rate, right? So the birth rate is still high as it was in stage 2, right? But the death rate decreases, which leads to this difference, right? This big difference leads to this increase, to this natural increase in population. And this is mainly due the death rate goes down because of advancement, not really advancement, because of like more sanitation and more medical advancements of some kind, right? But we're not. Let me see. Sorry, I got distracted with the. Okay. So yeah, and also be familiar with the different pyramids, right, of each stage. So second stage is where most increase happen, and you have to realize that in the first stage it's mostly a subsistence, right, kind of farming culture and society, right? So people would usually have a lot of kids, right, because they're needed for farming, they're used for farming. But at the second stage, people kept having these many well they ha- in the people would have a lot of kids because many of them will die of diseases, right? But in the second stage we see that more children actually surviving, and that's what's leading to the population growth, right? Because they're not the diseases that are like that are because of the advancement because of this progress in sanitation, and they're less, I guess, the societies are less aware of the viruses and stuff that can cause death. And then the third stage, right? The third stage, we still see growth, but we see that there are less. We still see growth, right? But we see people. It's a smaller population growth because death rate is still low, but people are actually having less kids because of urbanization, right? So the death rate is still low. Death rate is still low, but birth rate is going down too. So which leads to the smaller growth. And it is due to urbanization, right? Because people are moving to cities, people are having less kids, and because it's more expensive to have kids in urban areas, right? In urban areas, when you're in an urban area, you're most likely not going to be working as a farmer, right? You're not. It's gonna be more uh, profitable to not have so many kids, right? Because you have to take care of them, and it's expensive in urban areas and countries in general. And then the fourth stage, that's where the we also see the decrease. We see a very low death rate and birth rate, right? Because it's very advanced societies, and women, the main reason in that's why this is happening in stage 4, because of the role women play in that stage, right? Women kind of are given more opportunities. They're not seen as just baby givers, and their job is kind of more in society. They work, they're involved in the workforce, they receive an education. So because women are involved more in society, they're less they're less likely going to have so many kids because they're so involved in other things, in other parts of the society. And also the introduction of interceptions in that stage 2, it kind of is very high, which leads to this decrease in birth rate. And then in stage 5, that's where we see this this stage gets debated a lot. Many people say that, oh, like the natural increase rate will actually increase. Very debated. But at stage 5, that's where kind of man-made diseases comes in, and that's where population is expected to stay the way it is, like the same. The natural increase is supposed to stay constant or increase. It's very debated by many geographers. But in that stage, that's where we see the emergence of new viruses, and we see a lot of man-made diseases in that stage, which leads to the death rate going up a little bit. But we see it's very steady, right? Stage 4 and stage 5 usually gets combined, right? Because it's, yeah, sometimes stage 4 and 5 gets combined. Okay, so now we're gonna be talking about the epidemiological transition model, and that's kind of like is based on the regular, right, demographic transitional model. So we're just gonna be talking about diseases and how these diseases kind of change from going from the first to the fifth stage. So in the first stage, right, we're talking about how the culture is kind of the society is very based on food, right? Based on food and agriculture, right? So migrations in that stage would be based on looking for food, looking for natural resources. So many of the diseases or the catastrophes that can happen in that stage are kind of based on these resources, lack of resources, famines, right? Diseases, right? We can talk about the Black Death, right, happening in that stage, right? Very catastrophic diseases, right? And then the second phase, that's where we see more. In second phase, that's where we also see we're talking about the booming, right? The booming of the population. That's due to the decrease, right? The decrease in the death rate, but the birth rate is still up there, right? Birth rate is still very high. So this difference leads to that very high population growth. And there is no like any planning, right? People did not really plan how many kids they would have. Usually in the early stages, people would have so many kids because they would help them with the farming and other stuff. Children were used for work basically and for profit for most of history. But now their roles obviously changed. But yeah, in stage 3, that's where we see a very decrease in this death rate, right? Birth rate is kind of still high. No, birth rate goes down too, right? Because of urbanization. We talked about urbanization, birth rate goes down too. But we see more improved medical care. We see more researchers, more healthcare. I would say healthcare and more advanced medical advancements happen in more the first stage. But yeah, healthcare and medical resources, right? Advancements in technology, in medicine, yeah, advancement in medicine. That's what leads to this to less people dying. And then fourth stage, that's where we see man-made diseases, mainly due to, well, yeah, man-made diseases, right? Like cholesterol, high blood pressure. Those are made because of people's decisions. They're not part of the environment. They're not part of the environment. It's based on how personal decisions. And then you see here, we see it like how did you guys see the last slide, the last demographic transition? We talked about look at the fifth stage and we see how there's an increase, and then the second stage there's a decrease, right? And there's like it's kind of debated. There's a question mark, so it's debated. And in the fifth stage, that's where we see the reemergence of viruses that have been eradicated, right? So like what is it? The measles and Ebola, like that. Those kind of are not fully eradicated in poor countries. so they kind of re-emerge and genetically get modified, and then they kind of spread to still developing countries, developed countries. Okay, so Malthusian theory. So now we're gonna be talking about. So we're talking right. We saw here at the second stage, right? We see how population is so like it's going very fast. We see how wide the natural increase curve is. So Malthus gets that idea that population is growing so fast that he predicts that population growth will exceed production of food, which will lead to a lot of famine, right? So he said like it is needed, like things that like wars are kind of needed. He didn't, but like things that can decrease this population growth is needed, like wars, right? Because many men die in wars, which can lead to a decrease in birth rate. But okay, so we'll talk about the linear exponential growth. So make sure you guys know this theory was before the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution. So it's kind of obviously we know it's not accurate because of the industrial revolution, agricultural revolution, and the increase in the efficiency and the production of food. But okay, so I didn't want to say that. I want to describe the model first, and then we can talk about the what really happened. So okay, so the line is the linear line represents the linear growth of production of food, and the exponential, the curve, represents the population, right? So population growth exponentially, food follows in a linear pattern, right? But what really happened is that Malthus is assuming that production of food cannot really be increased, right, and become more efficiency. But obviously, like we talked about, the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution made it possible for food production to be more faster and to be sufficient for the population available. And again, if you look at that, it's kind of like, okay, we see a lot of famines and a lot of lack of resources, right, in other parts of the world, poorer parts of the world like Africa, but that is not due to the lack of food or the lack of resources in the world as a whole, but I would say it's due to an equal distribution of these resources. So it's different. It's very different. Okay, we'll do that, and then we can go over the questions after that. Again, feel free to get in some questions, write some questions if you have any questions. Any questions, you can put them down in the ask a question section. Okay, I see many of. Oh, I forgot to advertise it. I see many of you guys talking in the chat about the Olympics, right? Five Olympics. How you can basically get points on the stuff you do on Fiveable, like study guides, trivia questions, streams. That's cool. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Our group spent our Amanda and the other creators, our other group creators, spent a lot of times coming up with that project. So use the resources you guys have. Why not? Okay. So Wallenstein world system theory. So basically, Wallenstein basically divided the world countries or world regions based on the degree of development they are, right? So we see the core countries are the ones that are the most developed. Semi-periphery are kind of like the countries that are kind of developed or not really developed, are in between, and the periphery are the ones that are actually very, very, they have very low development. And usually in the core countries we see more specializations, right? The third sector, we see the third sector of economy more like growing. We see more specializations. People are not in the core countries, people don't work as farmers. They're not very, agriculture is more commercial, and because of that there's more people working in other sectors of the economy, like doctors, lawyers. We see a lot of specialty in that in those jobs, in jobs in general. And semi-periphery kind of, okay, so periphery are the ones that are mostly like not developed and based on agriculture. We see a lot of like, make sure you guys are familiar with maps, right? And how these concepts apply to the world, right? To world map as a whole. We know the periphery countries are basically in Africa, mostly in Africa and southeast Asia in the map over here. So it's this is due because Africa, right? Africa is so, it's not, it's developing, right? It's but their development is very low, and because they're so dependent on agriculture, right? So that because they're so dependent on agriculture, it's very hard for them to advance in other sectors. And again, there's a lot of factors that go into that. I know we're just talking about the development on the type of like economy that exists in a region, but obviously there's a lot of factors, right? Natural climate affects agriculture, politics. There's a lot of factors that play into that. But we're just talking about like in general. We're talking about in general. This is the pattern that's seen. Okay, we'll do the Heartland theory and then we'll go to the questions, because I believe. Let me see if we have enough time. I think we have enough time. We're like we're like halfway through. Okay, we have enough time. Okay, so the Heartland theory. This one is an interesting one. So this one basically talks about, well, it divides the like Europe, right? Europe, or like not Europe, but the world into heartland and to two sections, the heartland and the rimland. And basically, uh, what it is about is that it kind of states that whoever controls the heartland can control the world, right? So we see, so the heartland. Let's talk about the characteristics of these two regions. So we see the heartland is characterized, right? We see it's surrounded by land, and it doesn't really have any access to resources, right? So not resources, I mean water. So it's kind of like landlocked. But at the same time, there are the land is also flat and good for agriculture. And we see the Rhineland, on the other hand, it's not landlocked, right? It's surrounded by sea, by the different seas. Okay, so we see the Rhineland, right? Surrounded by the sea, and the Rhineland kind of has an advantage to control the heartland because it's kind of surrounding it, and it can attack the heartland from different borders, right? Because it's surrounding it and because it can access water. And we see that happening in history, right? We talk about Hitler, right? He wanted to control the heartland, and the Russian Empire too, right? The Russian Empire kind of wanted to expand more and more, and create expand more, right? It wasn't the heartland, right? So it wanted to expand more and conquer the Rhineland, but that kind of failed and it didn't work. But the theory is like whoever controls these two regions basically controls the. If the heartland controls the Rhineland, then the heartland region would be in control of the world, and the opposite is true. And this is due to the geography of those two yeah, regions, I would say, yeah. Okay, we'll talk about migration later. We'll go over the ask a question section and we'll see what happens. Okay. So we'll start the first one. We have 5 votes for this question. How do you guys know that there is a 50% chance of sorry. How do you guys know that there is a 50% chance of an agriculture FRQ? Okay. So, okay, I'm not an expert, right? I'm just a student. So I'm just saying what I know. Usually, usually the college board, from year to year, they're not gonna have, like, usually, right, FRQs on the same subject every year, or like 2 consecutive years after each other. So if we have an agriculture FRQ last year, it's very low. There's a very low chance of us having an FRQ based on agriculture this year. And it's because, consider, we have seven. Your thing has seven chapters. No, you have 7 chapters, right? You have 7 chapters, and we've taken 5 of them last year, right? So those will not be included. So we're left with 5, right? And one of them is agriculture, and then the other 2 are kind of connected. And I believe last year we had a one from Unit 6, and then we talked about, I think, development. I think we talked about 2nd and 3rd unit. So it's like, we didn't have an agriculture one. It's a very good chance to have it. Like, it makes sense for them to put it this year, because we haven't had an agriculture FRQ in a long time. If that makes sense. I hope. Yeah. I was to just study what they give us. Can you share the URL of the slideshow in the chat, please? In the chat? I don't know if I can do that. Let me see. Let me try. Actually, I don't think I'm allowed to do that. I don't know if I'm allowed. Am I allowed? Why do you guys need them? You will be able to access them after the in the replays. So I hope you can access them in the replays. So I know I can, but the thing is that I have. Okay, let me do it. I know I like. Okay. Let me, because I have to do some. Okay. Because the way we publish these on Fiveable is different. We don't share it, we publish them. So I didn't wanna, but let me share. Let me share the link right now. Okay, I hope it works. Tell me if it doesn't work. But we usually access these. Sorry, sorry guys. We usually publish these on the Fiveable website after we're done with the okay. Sorry, I'm just getting like back to this here. Okay. Go. Okay. Okay, so how many? Okay, so third question, second question. You're welcome, guys. How many letters, parts will be on the FRQ? Good question. I am assuming you have 25 minutes for the first question. So I'm assuming it has 4 or 5 parts. Your test will have 4 or 5 parts. I'm 4 or 5, like, it's one question, but it has 4 or 5 parts, 4 or 5 letters, if I would say. But again, it might vary. It depending on what are they asking you, what task they're asking you. Are they asking you to identify? Are they asking you to? Are they asking you to question and the task they're asking you? Just take into consideration the time. Don't linger on one of the questions if you don't know it. Take time into consideration and make sure to work efficiently. Use your time efficiently during the test. So yeah. So apart from these models, are there any other important models? Honestly, I would say no. Well, for this year, no. I would say no because those are the main ones that actually appear on the first 5 chapters or like 5 units. I mean, but there are in the AP HUG course, like especially in the 6th unit, there's many models that focus on urban patterns and rural, rural. Sorry, guys. Uh, patterns in cities, right? So, but you guys are not responsible for that, so don't worry about it. I'm pretty sure those will be the main ones you guys will need to know. I'm not familiar. Is there was group stages of cultivation in agriculture important to remember? Honestly, I am not familiar with what that is, but I guess you're talking about stages of cultivation. Oh, okay. So I'm not exactly familiar with the term, but I think you're talking about the advancements, right, in cultivation and what kind of like advancement cultivation and technology that happens in how plants get cultivated. So I would say yes, but I'm honestly not familiar with the term. I don't know what really implies to, but I would say yes. You have to know the I mean like the you have to know. Sorry, you have to know the state the process by which the agricultural revolution and the green revolution happened and how it has happened and how are they different. So I would say yes, but I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with these stages of cultivation. Sorry for that. Question: is Japan an example of a state that is an example of a stage 4 that might become a stage 5? See, yeah, it's very debated, right? Because we see like in Japan, right? We see a decrease in natural rate, right? So yes, you can say that. We can say that because the natural rate is decreasing, right? Because we have so many little people are having kids, and we see there's more of an older population because they're not the birth rate is very low. What is the difference between a nation and an ethnicity? Cool, very like vocabulary, very basic vocabulary. So ethnicity is basically usually a nation will have a similar ethnic background, right? A nation is basically a country in control that is sovereign. That uh, also has similar ethnic background. But this is what happened here. Is my thing not shared? What happened? Sorry, guys. That's strange. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. It's the connection. I'm very sorry. It's very slow here where I live because everybody's home and everybody's using the Wi-Fi. I'm very sorry. It's gonna take a couple seconds to load. Oh god, this is not cool. I'm very sorry, guys. Okay, we'll continue with the questions until something happens. Hi guys, I am back. Let me see if this works. You can see. Okay, great. Thank you for the feedback. I just want to make sure. It's the internet, guys. I'm pretty sure it's the internet because it's very. Please work. Please work. Yes, working. Yes, let's go. Okay, it's working. Great. So we'll get back to the questions. We spent like 5 minutes fixing that. I'm very sorry, guys. I'm very sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay. 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 Sorry. Okay. So we were talking about nation and ethnicity, right? So a nation is basically a sovereign state that has similar or that has a majority of some ethnic group, so that has a common ethnic background. And ethnicity is basically who do you relate, like who are your ancestors? Similarities that are, yeah, who do you come, what tribe do you come from, right? What country? Usually ethnicity is related to a nation, right? So if I would say I'm being American is an ethnicity. Being, I would say Arab is an ethnicity, right? Arab is like being Arab is it's not like there are so many countries that are no, sorry, you can't say being an American is an ethnicity. That's wrong. Sorry, guys, take that away. But being Arab, right? That can be described as an ethnicity because there's so many countries that relate to that, but it's not one specific countries, right? But usually a nation would have similar ethnic background, or a nation, sorry. What is the difference between horizontal integration and vertical integration in agribusiness? Okay, so let me see. So vertical, okay, so vertical integration, basically when the production of goods, of well, agriculture, so production of food, right, happens when one or two companies combine together, right? When they combine together and they work together, because they're 3, 4 separate companies, their production, the combination of their production increases, right? But horizontal integration, on the other hand, is when one company um, increases the commodity, increases a part of the commodity, increases the production of part of the commodity chain that its products are going through, right? So that would also lead to an increase in the production. But I would say vertical is more efficient, or not more efficient, but results in a greater increase in production. A second question. We have so many questions. 2 more questions. Okay. So what is a nation state? A nation state, a nation and a state. So a nation state is a state that's sovereign, right? Has sovereignty, and it usually is very homogeneous, right? So it has very similar people living in that nation state have some very similar ethnic backgrounds. They speak the same language. They're probably the same religion. So I would say Japan is a good one. Is a good example of that. Japan, Korea, I would say a good example of that. And I really like that you guys are able to answer the questions. I really think that's a very good way for you to improve your whatever your knowledge, or by being able to answer those questions. So you do that more often if you guys like. Okay, so I have another question. If the Kurds are a nation and the Kurdish people fall under a Kurdish ethnic group, then would that make a nation a group of people with the same ethnicity? That's not true. Kurdistan is an it's not okay. Kurdistan is like the northern part of Iraq, where Kurdish people want to establish their own land. So it would be an example of a nation state, but generally a nation does not have one same ethnicity, but it has like a measure. It should have similar, like for example the U.S. for example, right? During colonization, when the establishment of the U.S. The people that were migrating to the U.S. were European, right? So they had this similar background. I would say the same thing has to go for a nation, but that does not mean that it's there is a majority ethnic group in that nation, right? They have very similar. That doesn't mean that there are no other ethnic groups. I would say no. I'm back. Okay, it's loading. It's loading. You can see me. I'm assuming, right? But let me see if I can share the slides. I don't know what's going on, honestly, guys. It's just there's a lot of, I guess, pressure on the Wi-Fi. That's why. Let me try to share them. It might cut again, guys, because again, I'm very sorry. But I need to share them to be able to continue this. Please share, please share, please share, please share, please share. Okay, it's not sharing. It's sharing, it's not sharing. Yes, okay. Okay, great. Thank God for that. Okay. Okay, we'll continue. It's okay. We had technical difficulties, but we will. Great. It's sharing. Okay. Okay, we'll have to move a little bit faster because we wasted all the time. I don't think I can go an hour, but it's okay. Okay, so I'll make this bigger. Okay, let's go. Let's get back on it. Okay. Okay, so Zelinsky's model of migration transition. So basically, like there's another model that kind of follows the stages of the demographic transition, but it talks, instead of talking about the demographics of the countries, it talks about the patterns of migration. So in stage one, right, we see, because the society is based on agriculture, right? So we see the migration is based on it's more like regional, so it's interregional, and it's for search of food and resources, not water. And we see that's where past, pastoralism, that's where it plays, and that's the kind of, that's how pastoral people migrate, right? Because in search for food, for water for their cattle, and yeah, food for their cattle. Stage two, that's where we see more international and rural to urban. That's right. That's where we see this booming in population and urbanization. And this migration is because of lack of opportunities, right? We see more that there's a less need for farmers, and so we see people that are migrating into the cities to look for jobs in the factories, right? And then stage three and four, they kind of like are thrown into the same category. That's where we see counter urbanization. That's where we see there is like a shift. People are actually moving from the cities to the urban areas. And we see more intra-regional migration than inter-regional migration. What is the difference between intra and inter-regional, guys? Actually, I wrote this wrong. Sorry. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna confuse you guys. Never mind. Never mind. Don't answer the question. I wrote this wrong. It's supposed to be. This one is supposed to be the other way. No. It doesn't mean okay. Intra-regional migration is migration within a region, right? But inter-regional within a country, regions within the country. But inter-regional is migration outside of outside of political borders. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay. So Ravenstein laws of migration. Okay, these are very long, so I'm just gonna like read them, and then I'm just going kind of just like just talking about them really fast. So most people move short distances, right? Most people short distances. Most migrants are migrate into a regional and are into a regional migrants. They migrate within the same region of their country. So maybe they're changing locations, changing cities, maybe to look for opportunities, going to college, different regions. And most migrants migrate because of economic gains, right? This is the most driving factors for migration. We have migrants who move long distances, end up in larger cities, right? Because those larger cities have more opportunities and more of this economic gain that they're looking for. migration occurs in steps, right? People might not directly migrate to one place, right? They might have to go through different countries, right? Different countries to end up where they want to end up, right? Each migrant creates a counter stream on the opposite direction. Okay, this counter stream of migration is not necessarily the equal, right? But it is it's not necessarily equal, but there is some kind of opposite opposite counter stream for the migration in one spot. That does not necessarily mean people maybe migration of counter ideas from that region to the other region. Money can be another type of this migration. Yeah, so economic gain, we talk about that in the second one. Families are less likely to migrate because there's more danger, right? There's more danger, and it's more it's costly for 5 members to migrate instead of just one the man or the woman of the mother or the father of the family to migrate. It's easier. It's more difficult for a family to migrate. Young adults are more likely are migratory than families. Yes, we just talked about that. Women are more migratory than males in shorter distances. Males are less likely to are more likely to migrate longer distances, right? And then urban residents are less migratory than rural settlements. So yeah, so if I have a house in the rural areas, I'm less likely going to sell my house and buy another house, right? For me to migrate. But urban residents are kind of most urban residents are, I would assume, are not owners of their homes, so they would be more likely to migrate in search of I don't know, better housing or better economic opportunities. Large areas grow more. Large areas grow more by migration. Yeah. People, we were talking about Japan, right? Japan has a negative, right, a growth, right? Has negative growth, but it's growing because of migration, because people are going in there and doing work. People in rural areas are more likely to migrate than urban areas. Yeah, we talked about that. Okay, so we have 3 more. Okay, so the gravity model, I'm just gonna talk about it briefly. The gravity model basically talks about the size of a place between two places and the attraction between them. So the larger the size of a place, the more a place population-wise, right? Population-wise, it would attract more people. And the closer they are, it's like talking about gravity, right? I'm talking about two balls and gravity. The larger the masses of the two balls, the greater the attraction between these two balls, and the closer they are, the greater the attraction between them. Same thing here. The larger the sizes of the two cities or two regions, the more attracted they would the more attracted they would be to each other. So more people are going to be migrating from these two cities, these cities or regions, and the shorter they are, the more the migration, right? Because the distance is very small, they're very attracted to each other. Hope that makes sense. This one is just a concept to understand. I don't think it's like a real model. Okay, the von Thunen, this is the agriculture model. I actually want to spend a lot of time on this one, but unfortunately we can't because we are more than an hour, way more than an hour. Okay, but we will spend some more time on that, on it. So basically, this von Thunen model talks about the cost of land and the location of different sectors or different farming, ranching, and farms away from the market, from the center. So the center is basically the smallest, right, circle in the model, and then out of that we see dairy farming, right? The closest to the market is the dairy farming, and this is due to the fact that, right, are perishable, right? Dairies don't last that long, so they have to be closest to the market because they need to be transported very fast for them to be consumed, right? So they're closest because of transportation and how long it takes for transportation. And forests are the second, right? But what the heck? Why are forests like literally so close to the market, right? And this is due to transportation, right? Transportation of materials. forest, right? We get what we get wood from there, right? So wood is very heavy. That's why it's so close to the market, because transportation is expensive. But you have to make sure that understand that there are some assumptions, right? The model is assuming that all land is the same, all soil is the same. Going out, right? After the thing, we have grains and fields. That's where soil is very important to consider. So it's assuming that all soil is the same everywhere, and it's assuming that transportation cost is the same too. Transportation cost might not be the same, right? In northern parts of the U.S., it might be more expensive than southern parts. So it's important to understand these stuff. So the third concentric zone is talks about grains and fields, so production of food. That would be the third, because they're very, I wouldn't say they're light, but they're not perishable, right? They're not perishable. They require a lot of land, and the cost of land going outward from the market is cheaper. So that's why they're kind of far from the marketplace. And in addition, they need to be transported to the market. And then the last concentric zone talks about ranching and livestock. So that would be where empty land is, very, very far from the market. And the reason for that is because land is very cheap, right? It's very far from the marketplace. So land is very cheap, and because land is very cheap, and because animals need a lot of land to be raised in, so it's economically efficient for them to be raised in a cheap land that doesn't require a lot of revenue to purchase. And again, the animals don't really need to be very close to the market. There's no purpose for them, right? Only purpose for them is to be consumed, right? So they can be maybe like slaughtered away from the market, and then they can be transported to the market. But there is no purpose, like economic purpose, for them to be close by the market, if that makes sense. It's more efficient for them to be away, to be raised in away distance from the market. And the bid rent theory, this one is kind of okay. It's kind of relevant to this one, right? So the bid rent theory basically talks about the distance, right, from the CBD, right, the central district place, right, the business area, right. So we see the further, okay, we talk about residential, right. So the land closest to the market is the one that is that's the look all like literally my vocabulary and stuff right now. The land closest to the land furthest from the central district is the cheapest, and going closer to that would be the price of land will increase exponentially because we're so close to the market. And usually we see retail, we see and we see that the land, right, the area, we see the y-axis, right, the area of the land also decreases. But honestly, we don't really, it's kind of important to know that the price of land decreases, but this one is more of like unit 6, right, talking about cities. So I don't know why I included it. I just made sure that I had more condensed 5 chapters. But I would say, guys, review the concentric zone, right? Review this one. This one is very important if you give agriculture. And then review the demographic transition model. That one is a good important one too. And again, I'm very sorry, guys, for all the technical difficulties we had. We had to cut off twice. That's why we went over an hour. But good luck, guys. This is my last time, right? My last time streaming for you guys. So I hope all of you guys do very good on the test. You have one more week. Study hard, practice, and then you got this. Don't worry. I hope all of you guys have an amazing day, an amazing break from school or from AP test after the AP test. So I know I'm going to have an amazing break after the AP test. So you guys should have to. Okay, so again, don't forget to come to these streams if you're taking any of these other AP classes, and don't forget to follow us on Thinkfiable on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. and plus TikTok. So yeah, I hope all of you guys have an amazing day, and good luck. Bye, guys.